Hello and welcome back to Building Momentum, the show where we peel back the curtain on the exciting and often chaotic world of building a successful technology business. I'm Yash, your host for this show, where every episode we bring you the stories and strategies of people who've been in the trenches, conquering churn, scaling their teams, and building products that people and businesses love. In this episode, we'll be chatting with Mike from SpyFu. SpyFu helps you look through everything your competitor has done and is doing, every keyword, every ad, every variation, and every rank over the last 18 years. They have 7 billion data points for over 109 million domains. We'll also understand their work with rival flow. We'll be dissecting the wins, the losses, and everything in between. So buckle up, grab your headphones, and get ready to dive into the world of building digital products. Hi, Mike. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. It's going to be a good time, I can tell.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for taking out the time and thank you for joining us. And so let's start with the absolute fundamental basics. What is the big bad problem that you were trying to solve with SpyFu, which you're solving as of now as well? And what is rival flow all about?
Sure. So you can go to SpyFu and type in any website and see every keyword that they rank on Google. You can see all of the ads that they buy and everything that they have ever bought over time. So you can kind of see the entire evolution of their internet marketing strategy. Interestingly, you can also use SpyFu to track your own progress. Now, I tend to tell people you should actually use Google Search Console for that. But people tend to like to use the same tool that they're comparing their competitors to. And as it turns out, nowadays, we've got like data on like 1.6 billion keywords. And so you can kind of see all the big picture of where you're ranking on Google and how that moves daily, because it's updated daily in pretty much all the countries. So it's a pretty big platform that captures everything that's going on. So the big problem that we solved, that I've kind of been trying to solve for honestly like 10 years, is to create like an SEO workflow that that works, is relatively easy, not like overly technical, right? Making something that's not overly technical makes it so that anybody can do it. Like you can hand it to your mom, or you can hand it to like somebody that's not particularly skilled, not technical, but also that it won't tank you sometime, right? Like, so that we're not like trying to create some kind of black hat thing. Usually when you create like an SEO workflow, I've been around the industry for like 25 years or something, right? Usually something that you're doing is either shady, or it's too hard, or it doesn't work. One of the legs of the stool doesn't hold up. So I've been trying to figure out how to like build that perfect thing, right, for a very long time. And along comes AI and makes it so that it suddenly became pretty straightforward to do. And so we built that. And what we do is we look at, like, here's your scenario. Your most annoying competitor steals your top spot on Google, right? And you're like, that one kind of hurts, because it was actually one of the good ones, like something that I actually wrote. I'm the founder. I wrote that blog article, and now some idiot is outranking me, right? Like, it was clearly, theirs is fine. It's fine. It looks good, but it's not as good as mine. But why does Google think that theirs is better? And then we just don't really know. And so we either like go away, you kind of feel bad about it, and you don't really know. You feel a little bit judged. So this is the problem that we solve. So what we do is we read your competitor's page using ChatGPT, and then we read your page and we say, what questions are they answering that you're not? And what questions are they answering more thoroughly? The reality is that you may have a curse of knowledge. You're actually probably the good one, the smart guy, right? You knew what you were writing. You know the whole subject so far in and out that you forgot what it was like to be a beginner, and that's why they're outranking you, right? So then we just use AI to fill in those gaps so that it flows perfectly into your article as if you wrote it. And all you got to do is copy and paste it. We show you right where to put it, right? So that's the problem that we're solving. The crazy thing is that I figured doing stuff like this would improve your ranks, would give you like a 15, 20%, but predictable lift in traffic. But what really happened is that we wind up getting like these 2x boosts. So actually, in aggregate, if you run this on like, say, 10 pages on your site, you'll end up with about a 40% overall lift. Oh, wow. But they come in 2x lifts. Like, so you double your traffic on some, and some of them just kind of like you don't get an impact from. But the aggregate winds up being 40%. And now that we've been doing this for about a year and a few months, I have long data from thousands of customers where they've plugged in their Google Search Console. And so I can see that, statistically, this is all true. And I've done videos and so on where I just kind of like YOLO into customer accounts and show people. So it works really well. Like it's kind of like, I don't even care if you all buy it. You should just use it. Because all I really care about is creating value in the world,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'll have more questions about this, but would it be and tell me if I'm understanding this correctly, or is this a fair way to put it, which is where, up until the AI revolution sort of came about, I wouldn't say it's over, like we're still in it, but you were with SpyFu, you were in the business of giving me insights and telling me where you stand, and sort of I was able to run my own benchmarks with my competitors, and then I have the insights, and then it's completely up to me to do whatever I think is right. But with Rival Flow, specifically from an SEO standpoint, I now know what are the points of where all can I improve. But then I can also go in and then get it fixed using AI as well. So classic case of sort of an idea being ahead of time, but then technology following suit fairly soon. Would that be a fair way to put it?
Yeah, well, I mean, in reality, like when I launched SpyFu back, I mean, that was actually in 2006 or 2007. My like confidence level as a marketer was, like I was basically an engineer that had learned some marketing, right? Like I was kind of like not overly confident that anything that I said, if I were to give you advice, I'd be like, you're probably more of an expert at like the marketing side than I am. Well, so now, it's 20 years later, and I'm like a keynote speaker. I've done a lot. I've brought many products to market successfully, right? And so now, like, my perspective is I can probably give you good advice. And so I bake that into the product. And, that's been an evolution. But like now I'm more interested in just being like, here's the answer. Just go do this. It will work. I promise. Right? Like everybody just do this.
Yeah.
It's going to be good. But that was not the case, when I launched SpyFu. That was more of like I was a data guy, and I figured out that it made sense to make a reverse phone directory, but for Google, right? Like, and then make it really big, and that's kind of how it was. So
that's an interesting way to look at it. And so one of the questions, and so by the way, I've used SpyFu for I'd say close to at least half a decade, if not more. And that has helped us, craft our strategy for the previous company that I was running, which was a SaaS product, CRM sort of a product, where SEO was a big part of our GT, and then Google Ads as well. The thing that I wanted to understand from you is SpyFu seems like that product which is very, very easy to over engineer. Where as a founder, while you're building it, until you've reached a significant milestone, let's say that is $100,000 in annual run rate, right? So until you reach $100,000 in annual run rate, it's extremely easy to think that, oh, I don't have enough data, oh, I don't have enough like the right charts, oh, I'm not showing the right insights, or whatever the case may be, and you would go in and just keep on investing more and more into the products. So tell me, how was it like the first zero to the first $100,000 in revenue for you in annual revenue?
So, the way that this was, the way this worked is before I had SpyFu, I had another software company called Web Scraper. The product was called Web Scraper Plus, and what it would do is you could like sort of have this WYSIWYG interface where you could take a data off of a website and put it into a spreadsheet or database. Like I made it easy, back in say 2005 or 2004, and one of the things, so like customers would always come to me, because really the product was more of a solution, or it kind of, you could basically leverage it. We'd basically often sell some consulting along with it, which wasn't my intent when I launched it, but it's just how the product worked.
Yeah.
Many people just didn't, as easy as it was, they needed help. So we helped them. And the thing that was kind of like frustrating about the customers is they weren't really very creative, right? They'd be like, I want to scrape this website and then make another website that's exactly like it. Like, I just basically want to take all of the data from this site and put it into my own. And I'm like, why? Just, there's like, I'm like trying to give them ideas. Like, okay, like scrape eBay Motors and like scrape Kelly Blue Book and then find the good deals. Or like, don't just try to like scrape Google results and then like, I literally was trying to give the idea away. I'm like, just make it so you can search something in reverse. Make it so that you have two different data sources and then connect them. This is how you create value with data. But nobody really gets it, right? So I made I wanted to make a prototype that just showed people how it worked. So I made this thing called GoogSpy, and then I did a press release because back in the day we didn't really have like social media. So that's what I did. I launched it with a press release, and it got into like the Wall Street Journal and crap like that. Then I sat on it for a while, and then I built a prototype. And when we ultimately built a prototype and launched it, we actually wound up launching to probably $20,000 in MRR because we'd already built a bit of an audience, right? Like it was free for a long time. And I'm a believer that free is, you got to give something away for free because people will get up on stage, at like conferences or whatever, and they'll like talk about free tools. People will shill your free tool, but they're not going to talk about something that's not free. Right. So keep something in your product that's meaningful, that's free. And SpyFu to this day is still like, you don't have to create an account to go to SpyFu. You can go to SpyFu right now and type in a website and you can see the number of keywords. You can see the top 5, top 10 of everything. You can browse around and there's no limits. You don't have to create an account to do it. So as time's gone by, I realized that that's not necessarily the surest path to incremental wealth, actually. But I think it's useful for the world. I think that it's nice to have like things on the internet that you don't have to like create an account and like have and constantly be upsold. It's nice to have valuable data that's available for free on the internet.
So and so thank you for that because you saved a lot of agencies a lot of time because whenever a client would come in and they'd have a request, if they were looking for an SEO agency, a lot of my friends run digital marketing agencies and they'd use SpyFu to sort of identify the gaps and convert that into a presentation and make it part of the pitch, right? And so that way it was sort of part of the tool stack, not just for the marketing team, but also for the pre-sales or the sales team as well when they were pitching to clients, specifically for agencies as well. And so tell me, like one of the other things that I wanted to understand was on the idea around the free versus paid. As to there's significantly, I mean, it's very, very visible that there's significantly more things that I can do on SpyFu for free and versus most of the other platforms that I could name or I could use. And so what went is the only thought process was that if we offer and create just value for free, then will be talked about more people will come to use it. Or you were just sort of trying to break the internet and be like, hey, I've created something valuable. Here it is for everyone to use.
So like some of the things that I did then weren't necessarily well informed. And some of the things that I did then aren't necessarily best practice 20 years later, right? So like one of the things that you could do that worked then would be to like make every page on your site indexable, And so at some point we did have like a really large SEO footprint, too large, like so much traffic that we actually couldn't handle it, right? Like we'd get like 10 million uniques per month and like straight up people would just be like, hey, I know your brand. I don't know why I know your brand, but like I did some search on it, like.
Absolutely.
So that is no longer best practice unless you have, you really have to have truly unique and valuable content in order for that to work. And then, of course, it dilutes the rest of your brand. So it's not necessarily, you have to be really careful with doing that kind of thing. But back in, the sort of 2008, 2009, 2007 timeframe, and frankly, through like 2014, that was a pretty good strategy. And then we adapted. So yeah, I think that having a really big, like a very, very large number of indexable pages helped us, but we just had innovation, right? Like before there was SpyFu, there was no way to do what SpyFu did. Like if you wanted to know the keywords that your competitor was ranking on, you couldn't. You just have to guess and check, right?
Yeah, I would guess, create a spreadsheet and
like everybody that's like, it's about a $500 million a year industry now, right? And it's a very fragmented marketplace with lots of sort of copycat competitors or whatever, right? Like it is what it is. At some point, everybody copied us, right? That's how it works. But now there's just like a bunch of products that do similar things to SpyFu. And yeah, I mean that's just the way it is. It's harder to differentiate. It would be very difficult to do what we did, but because we innovated, because it was a singularity, like it had never been done before, and it was free, like it's just that works. And it probably
Okay,
always will.
got it.
Yeah, I mean, that worked with Nacho Analytics, like another company. I just
Yeah.
don't do things that have been done before. And so that's like a gift and a curse. That's frankly the worst possible way to start a business is be like, first thing is I have to like make something that's never been done before, creating a
Yeah.
market where nobody actually said that they wanted the thing. Like you just have to like that's not the right way. The fastest way is to find something that exists, an existing market, and
Yeah.
to make some incremental.
So the other thing that I wanted to understand was like why, um, you know, why create a separate brand, right? Isn't that just a lot more headache? Like, why not just build it as an add-on within SpyFu or an additional module that is available on higher tiers or something like that? Like, why not? Why create a separate product?
That's a great question. It might not be the best choice. I'll tell you why we did it, and then I'll tell you why it might not be a good idea.
Okay.
So the thing is that Rival Flow does something that's like quite different than what SpyFu does. The core value proposition of SpyFu is, download your competitors' keywords and ads and spy on people. Rival Flow is improve your existing content with AI. It's a totally different value proposition.
Pitch.
And it's very important, I think, for us to say, improve existing content with AI. Like those 5 words, it's not like we're not building new content. And it's important that the content already exists because that's what makes the model work. And we're improving that existing content and we're doing it with AI. Like all those things, every word in that matters. And that like little razor's edge, in my view, is the most important part of the marketing for that product. Defining what the brand means and all that. The product also has different scales, or like it actually has incremental costs. Every writing project that we do entails a decent amount of AI analysis, and it has real cost. When you like go and browse around SpyFu, frankly, it doesn't really cost us. It costs us some. We can quantify it, but it's fine. Just keep browsing around until you're super happy that you've got a lot of data, right? Because really, it's an all-you-can-eat platform. So if we make the all-you-can-eat platform so that you can just also share it with all of your team members, that's not really a proper way to scale it. You have to pay for additional seats. On SpyFu, it's like $15. It's not very expensive to add additional people, but it does scale that way. With Rival Flow, it's like, really the cost increments are going to be in the number of pages that you improve. I don't care how many team members you want on your team. You can have an infinite number. And I feel like that makes sense and is a point of virality, right? So, like, because every person that uses it and gets to understand it is a node of sneezing, that can tell other people about it. So I want more people to use it. I want you to invite all your team members for free. And I would frankly want that to happen with every product. But there's like group buys, right? With SpyFu, if I made that happen, like group buys, like we have like 25,000 people using like a single group buy account at some point. I'm like, Jesus.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a big thing, like it's a weirdly large business model for group buys. Like it's bigger than I estimated it. It's bigger than Ahrefs. Like it's a pretty big business. Like group buys in aggregate. Yeah. So like it's not nothing, but I understand it's a different market. It's kind of like when I had Web Scraper, which is a perpetually licensed software. Like the people that download the keys or whatever, cracks. It's not really my customer. It doesn't. I think they're also a viral node, right? So anyway, the reason that we create another brand is because it's not the profit model isn't in perfect alignment with SpyFu, right? It's obviously still SaaS, but it scales differently. And I felt like it would be more difficult to combine those two. And the benefits of having a separate brand or having being able to define those 5 words associated with that one brand would be better than letting people get confused. That said, we wind up co-branding it, and I didn't realize how incredibly valuable the existing brand, that the recognizable brand that is SpyFu is. Because SpyFu has a lot of goodwill, a huge amount of trust and goodwill we built up that I just take for granted just walking through my life, right? I'm just oh, it's SpyFu. But people are like, if I just tell them about Rival Flow, absent SpyFu, they're like, Rival Flow, who are you? And then, and then I'm like, hold on, let me have a look at this. It's a pretty big difference.
It is a huge difference. And while you seem to grasp that, I'll add one more anecdote to this. Is that when you said yes to join us for this conversation, I literally walked up to my my co-founder's cabin and said, "Hey, the SpyFu guy is going to be on our show." Because all of us, everyone in the growth team knows SpyFu as a platform. You're like the first person. You're the first person on this show whose product we've used and all, right? For nice. Everyone. So I'm not. So to be honest with you, I didn't have to do research and all for this conversation, right? Because typically what would happen is if there's a guest who says yes, I'll sign up to their product and I'll check out and then I'll figure out a few questions. I'll write notes on who their ideal customers are and stuff like that. I didn't do any of that, right? I did that. So there's a significant amount of good brand image or goodwill that SpyFu carries as well. The other thing that I wanted to ask and understand is tell us about a growth experiment that you felt convinced that this will work, right? So some experiment that you ran in terms of growing SpyFu or growing Rival Flow. Rival Flow could be more recent, but tell us about an experiment that you were convinced that logically, rationally, this makes sense. Absolutely, this has to work. But then for whatever reason it didn't. And how did you figure that out? How did you know that this is not working, right? So if you can share a little more on that.
I have run so many tests. So many tests, so much split testing. It's a big thing that we do. Try to optimize stuff. The biggest one, okay, so I'll tell you kind of the one that I have that I'm sort of still I'm not sure. I kind of know. Oh, okay. Actually, okay, I'll tell you one. I'll tell you one. It's probably the biggest. I'll tell you the biggest mistake, kind of the quintessential mistake that every software person makes. And it's almost like the first mistake that I ever made, right? And that's, I call it sort of the Kevin Costner Field of Dreams, build it and they will come. It's like the build it and they will come mistake, right? Yeah. So I spent 15 months building this product web scraper, and nights and weekends, I had consulting gigs in between. The real thing probably took maybe 2 years to build, but honestly, I give it 15 months of my life. Mm-hmm. I would fall asleep on my couch writing code, and then I would wake up in the morning and keep writing code. And then I'd go to the coffee shop and I'd be writing code. And this is every single day of my life for 15 months, I wrote this code. And I'm this is the greatest product that's ever been made. It is so good that I'm going to be instantly rich as soon as I launch it, right? So I put it out I get it out the door, and I put it on all these. Back in the day, there were these shareware sites or whatever that you put it on, and I published it to them. And I'm okay, now the money is going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And you probably know what the story is, but the story is, I made 3 sales or so in I don't know, 2 months or something, right? And, I made $600 or maybe $1,000 or something like that. And I had to go back to work. I had to go get a job. I kept working on that product, and I ultimately got it to the point where it was making me $3,000, $4,000 a month by just continuing to not work on the product, but the marketing and the product. It had some problems. But that's kind of the fundamental problem, is you think that if you just put it out the door, that it's so good that people are going to love it. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I'm a smart person. I've spent 20 years in business. I'm relatively successful. I've got multiple companies under my belt, right? So one day in like roughly 2020, right approximately after the fall, if you want some kind of follow up conversation where we talk about notch analytics. So like I had a company fail catastrophically and crazily. And so at the end of that, I'm like, you know what? That was fun. We were going to go huge. It was going to be big. Now I want to do the same thing, but with SpyFu, right? So I'm like, I'm going to take every scintilla of profit that I have, right? All of my money, right? And I'm going to make it so that we have more data than anybody in the world, right? I'm going to build the platform that can basically encapsulate all of Google, right? And so we're going to basically build a platform capable of like 100xing our data. And but I'm like, okay, so we set out on this path, but I'm like, what I need to do is like, let's say 10x our data and then measure. I don't want to tell anybody about it because I need to understand whether doing this inherently causes people to either, more of them buy or more of them be retained. I need to understand the fundamentals, right? Like what actually is happening. Are they doing it? Meanwhile, as we're doing it, we're making it like launching multiple countries and we're making the data update like live, perfectly fresh. Like fresh to the second, right? Updating the entire site to go along with this and have more functionality. But because I'm so, on the science of it to like measure whether or not it impacts people's behavior, I never announce it.
Wow.
Because science, right? Because science. So we did all this, right? SpyFu in like 2020 maybe had like 50 million keywords. We now have like we have 4 billion keywords, but every month we have like 1.6 billion keywords tracked. It's bigger than Ahrefs and SEMrush.
Yeah.
For every keyword, for every website, for every page, we have about twice as much data and 10 times as much paid data, PPC data, right? It's enormous and updated constantly. And I've never launched it. Because what happened is we get it all the way to the finish line, and I'm like, maybe I'll tell somebody about it now. Shit, the AI revolution. We've got to like make some stuff. So then we make RivalFlow, and we build all of RivalFlow. And then, I get to the end, now we're at like, and I'm like, I do now, right? Like, do I launch it? Like, should I think the answer is to launch it, to like to launch something, because clearly it's a mistake to have not to,
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. It's also like after a certain amount of traction, it seems a little weird also that how do I launch something that's like already popular, right? So, but yeah,
Well, I mean, I have to tell everybody about it, and the way that we sort of structure our communications is like kind of bursts. Like I don't really know another way to do it. Really, just kind of like have a theme, if you will. So that's
and so communication sort of, so and before I let you go, the last thing that I wanted to understand from you was at some point of time you were, I think you were a company that worked in one place, right? So you had an office or maybe a few places, and then now I think you are 100% remote company, right? And so what are some of the so communication, of course, needs to change significantly better, but like why do that, right? So why isn't it more inconvenient to have a remote team instead of having like all hands on deck in one place, walking over someone, tap their shoulder? There are no flus around. So why? Oh, I'm sorry. There are, I think, in US there's a bird flu or something like that. But why do that?
It's a great question. So honestly, the reason, of course, so we had an office. I still have an office building. I still own the office building.
Okay.
And but we don't go to it. Like we just don't. We go to it maybe like at least once a year. At least once a year. We have like some party there. And so it's like this. Like I actually always thought for sure that at some point at the end of the pandemic that we would go back.
Yeah.
But let's like roll back to the beginning of times, right? When you first founded the company, right? I mean, you had your founding team, but like it's like the first day that you hire your first employee is the first day that you lose your actual freedom, right? because you have to go to the office and set an example. I don't go to the office because I need to go to the office. I go to the office to show people how to work, like to show up, to like, you lead by example. And so I can't just like I'll work until 4 a.m, until 5, until 8 a.m. I'll just keep working, right? Like I work, I don't stop. That's what I do. I mean, I have kids, I'm a dad, I do the things, right? But I don't really have a problem with motivating myself. And I am intrinsically interested in solving problems, right? Like I just like doing this stuff. If I'm not really going to retire, because I just will keep solving problems, right? So like
there'll be newer problems to solve.
Yeah. So I like doing it. But when I hire people, I want to show them how to work, how to think, how to operate, how to work. And I think that that's an important thing, but you lose that freedom, And actually, I think that I prefer having that freedom back, even though I actually miss my miss hanging out with my team. I would miss hanging out with my family more. And I also, we've obviously done it. We had a chance, we had an opportunity to restart that thing. And we were like, man, it's such a burden. I mean, it's a lot of, okay, look, my office, I couldn't have a better commute. I skateboard across the park, like my house is on one side of the park, my office on the other side of the park, and I skateboard across it. It's the best possible commute. Like my office is like, it's got 12 kegerators in it and like video games and ping pong. It's a beautiful place that anybody would want to work. But I would rather just come and sit down and start working and not have to even brush my teeth. I do brush my teeth. But broadly speaking, I get more done. I'm able to get more done. And so I didn't think that I would prefer it, but I do. And I frankly think that everybody does. There are probably some people that should be in the office because they're probably not very self-motivated. The people that don't need that make up for it, right? So the high achievers, the ones that actually get things done, lots of things, they get 30% more done. And then the other people get 80% less done, but they were less efficient in the first place. And ultimately, that's sort of the challenge or the rub or whatever. You have to sort of, it all evens out in a sense.
And so while we may not say it, this is the first thing that first time that I heard this as a reason. And now that I think about it off the top of my head, it seems to be true, right? So while I may not say it, that I come to the office for the convenience of having to just call an impromptu meeting or have an important conversation with a coworker, hang out with them, and so on and so forth. But subconsciously, this is one of the things that it sort of happens in the head, which is, hey, look how hard I'm working, or look how hard that person is working. And, it's something that I would subconsciously want them to look up to, or try and do that as well for the organization. Interesting take here, Mike. And I want to thank you for taking out the time, and for all the people who've been listening or watching this on YouTube or Amazon Music or Spotify. You already have a SpyFu account, but check out Rival Flow. And so do check out Rival Flow, sign up for it, and you can connect with Mike on LinkedIn. His username is Mr. Spy, which is something that I realized just earlier. But thank you everyone for joining in and for listening, and thank you especially Mike for joining us for this conversation as well.
Thanks for having me. I will note also that Rival Flow you can sign up for without a credit card. You can do plenty of improvement. So, it's lots of people use it that way. I mean, I just want you guys to get value in anything that I produce. So it's pretty much what motivates me. It's been great. Thanks for having me on.
No, absolutely, Mike. Thank you for taking out the time. We'll connect